welcome back to the Room of Requirement. Today I'm going to be talking about the history of esoteric astrology, the precession of the equinoxes, and the ages. Why is this important? Astrology is very important to the practice of high magic, which directly influences Western esotericism, and that's what this channel is about, and that's the background that I have. And astrology is very important for you to learn. When you are first starting out, if you're practicing any kind of ritual magic, you were supposed to pick one or two things that you are going to study alongside your practice. Way back when, I decided I was going to do astrology and tarot. And I've been teaching this a lot to my students on a one-on-one basis. I've also been doing it in the school that I created. This is one that I do in person, by the way. Eventually, I want to have one online for all of you guys. But anyway, the second reason why this is important is because we are moving from the age of Pisces, which is a mutable water sign, into the age of Aquarius, which is a fixed air sign. And we are seeing all of this starting to play out. We are smack dab right in the middle of the change of the ages. And so I'm going to talk a lot about how that happens and why that happens and what the flavor of the era is due to the precession of the equinoxes. All of this stuff, eventually you will have to learn if you're going to practice any kind of ceremonial or high magic. It is heavily influenced with planetary energies, elemental energies, all of this. Okay, anyway, so let's go ahead and dive into this. Okay. So I'm going to talk about what astrology is, how long it's been used, and why it endures. Astrology is one of the oldest surviving sacred sciences in human history. It is not merely a collection of symbolic meanings assigned to planets or signs, nor is it only a method of prediction, nor merely a psychological tool for understanding personality. In its deepest and oldest form, astrology is a cosmological language, a way of reading the relationship between the movements of the heavens and the unfolding of life on Earth. It is founded upon the principle that the cosmos is not chaotic, dead, or random, but ordered, ensouled, rhythmic, and intelligible. The stars, planets, luminaries, and seasonal shifts were understood by ancient peoples not as distant objects suspended in empty space, but as visible signs of invisible law. Astrology arose from the earliest human recognition that existence unfolds in cycles, day and night, waxing and waning moons, planting and harvesting seasons, floods and drought, life and death, kings rising and kingdoms falling. Humanity perceived that the heavens moved in patterns and that earthly life also moved in patterns, and from this recognition emerged the conviction that there is a correspondence between above and below, between macrocosm and microcosm, and between celestial order and terrestrial experience. Astrology has been used in some form for tens of thousands of years, if one includes prehistoric sky observation, lunar tracking, and ritual alignment to celestial cycles. Through its recorded and systematic use reaches back approximately 5,000 to 6,000 years. It was used by priesthoods, temple builders, astronomer scribes, kings, physicians, philosophers, magicians, alchemists, and initiates. In Mesopotamia, it served rulers and empires through omen literature and celestial forecasting. In Egypt, it was woven into temple ritual, sacred architecture, decanic timing, and afterlife cosmology. In Greece, it was philosophically refined and mathematically organized into zodiac houses, aspects, and planetary rulerships. In the Islamic Golden Age, it was preserved, translated, corrected, and advanced through astronomy, medicine, and orrery practice. In the Renaissance, it was reunited with Hermeticism, alchemy, medicine, music, and ceremonial operations. In later occult traditions, it became part of initiatory systems, magical correspondences, and spiritual psychology. In the modern era, it was often reduced to personality shorthand, yet beneath the reduction, the deeper current still remains. Astrology as the science of timing, symbolism, consciousness, and cosmic participation. At an esoteric level, astrology is not simply about what will happen or what kind of person someone is. It's about the architecture of time. It is about how consciousness descends into matter, expresses through cycles, and evolves through experience. It is about the living intelligence of the cosmos and the way in which humanity has sought across millennia to understand its place within that order. To study astrology, therefore, is to study not only planets and signs, but history, myth, ritual, kingship, medicine, philosophy, initiation, and the evolving relationship between humanity and the heavens themselves. One of the most important foundations for esoteric astrology, especially when speaking about the history of consciousness and civilization, is the precession of the equinoxes. This refers to the slow backward movement of the equinoctial point through which the zodiac, due to the gradual wobbles of the Earth's axis. Although the yearly equinoxes still occur, the background constellation associated with the spring equinox shifts over very long spans of time. This means that humanity, collectively speaking, moves through great zodiacal eras, sometimes called the ages. The Earth takes roughly 25,920 years to complete one full precessional cycle, often called the Great Year or Platonic Year. Dividing this great cycle by the 12 zodiac signs gives an approximate duration of 2,160 years per zodiacal age. So that means it stays in that age for 2,160. In practice, these transitions are not clean, exact, or universally dated. They overlap, fade into one another, and often show signs of the incoming era before the old one has fully passed away. And that is exactly where we are now. We have a front row seat to the change of the ages, and I think that's why a lot of us are here now. In esoteric thought, these ages do not simply describe astronomy, they describe collective shifts in consciousness. Each era carries the stamp of the zodiac sign, and as that sign becomes dominant, human culture begins to mirror its archetype in religion, politics, myth, art, economy, warfare, social organization, and spiritual aspiration. The zodiacal age, therefore, becomes a way to understand world history symbolically. It suggests that civilizations themselves unfold through archetypal timing, and this allows you to see astrology not only as a personal tool, but as a world-scale initiatory clock. The ages reveal how the cosmos imprints itself upon collective culture, and how entire civilizations began to embody the qualities of the sign presiding over that era. We have the age of Taurus, approximately 4300 BCE to 2150 BCE. It was in the sign of Taurus. That is an earth sign, and its mode is fixed. The age of Taurus is associated with consolidation, fertility, agricultural life, material stabilization, endurance, land, sacred form, and devotion to visible abundance. Taurus is the fixed earth sign. It concerns embodiment, cultivation, wealth in tangible form, sensuality, fertility, and the construction of enduring structures. When we look at civilizations rising or during or strongly reflecting this age, we find a world deeply concerned with land, cattle, fertility, agriculture cycles, and permanence. This is why we still have a bull outside of Wall Street right now, and they call the stock market, they say something is a bull market. Okay, it comes from the age of Taurus because we had bull worship and the age of Taurus. Okay, it's associated with abundance and money, wealth. So this era corresponds broadly with the strengthening of agriculture societies, the rise of settled cultures, and the reverence for fertility symbols, and the construction of great enduring monuments. It's no accident that we find strong bull symbolism in many ancient cultures associated with this period. In Egypt, the Apis bull became a sacred image of power, fertility, and divine embodiment. In Minoan civilization, bull imagery appears in ritual and art. In Mesopotamia and surrounding regions, bovine symbolism is associated with kingship, strength, and fertility. Taurus is not merely the bull in a simplistic sense, it is the impulse to stabilize life through matter, food supply, land, beauty, and sacred continuity. Culturally, this age mirrors Taurus through reverence for fertility and the fecundity of earth, agrarian economies and settled civilization, large enduring stone construction, sacred animals associated with strength, nourishment, and fertility, social emphasis on continuity, stability, and preservation. The Taurian current is visible wherever humanity seeks to root itself in the physical world and create forms that will endure. The Age of Aries, approximately 2150 BCE to 1 CE. Okay. It was in the sign of Aries. That's why in Judaism you see a lot of ram symbolism, because the symbol for Aries is the ram. It would blow out of the ram's horn. So this is heavily associated with Judaism. It's the element of fire, and it's cardinal, which means it begins things, it initiates. So the Age of Aries reflects a shift from stable cultivation to assertion, conquest, leadership, force, and individual heroic emergence. Aries is a cardinal fire sign ruled traditionally by Mars. It initiates, attacks, advances, competes, and establishes identity through action and struggle. So when the collective current moves from Taurus to Aries, humanity begins to emphasize war, kingship, empire, sacrifice, mobility, command, and the will to dominate. This period includes the rise and consolidation of major warrior empires and martial civilizations. Assyria, Persia, Greece, and Rome all express aspects of the Aryan current through conquest, military organization, expansion, and heroic myth. The symbolism of the ram and the lamb becomes increasingly important in religious transitions. One can see movement away from the bull symbolism of Taurus and into ram or lamb symbolism, more fitting of Aries. Aries carries themes of blood, sacrifice, initiation through conflict, assertion of identity, and leadership by force. Culturally, the Age of Aries mirrors its zodiac sign through the rise of warrior aristocracies and military empires, heroic myths centered on conquest, courage, and will, patriarchal consolidation and centralized rulership, ram and lamb sacrificial symbolism, emphasis on law, order, command, and outward expression. Aries does not ask humanity merely to survive, it asks it to claim, conquer, differentiate, and impose will. The Age of Pisces, which we've been in for 2,000 years. So this is approximately 1 CE to 2000 CE. And this is the Age of Pisces. It's a water sign, it's mutable, which means it's adaptable and it can change. And the symbol is the two fish. Okay, this is where we get Christianity from. Christianity was formed here. Pisces rules the 12th house of the subconscious and spirituality. And so that's why we've had a lot of religions being birthed in this age. We are going from this to a fixed air sign, which is going to be completely different. So we'll talk about that in a second. Well, the Age of Pisces shifts human consciousness away from purely martial conquest and towards faith, sacrifice, redemption, mysticism, compassion, sorrow, devotion, and transcendence. Pisces is a mutable water sign associated with disillusion, spiritual longing, duality, suffering, salvation, symbolic imagination, and the blurring of boundaries between worlds. It's a sign of both profound mysticism and profound confusion. The most obvious cultural reflection of this age is the rise of Christianity, whose fish symbolism aligns directly with Piscean imagery. The central themes of this religion, faith, sacrifice, mercy, compassion, martyrdom, salvation, suffering, and surrender, and life beyond the material world are deeply Piscean. Yet Pisces is dual, and so this age has also expressed illusion, dogma, escapism, mass emotional projection, and spiritual confusion. It gave rise to monasticism, mysticism, ecstatic devotion, visionary religion, hidden orders, and sacrificial spiritual models, while also fostering collective delusion, persecution, and ideological possession. Culturally, the Piscean age mirrors its sign through spiritual systems centered on faith and salvation, the fish as a sacred symbol, mysticism, monasticism, devotion, and martyrdom, longing for transcendence beyond the material world, emotional and symbolic worldviews, dogma, illusion, projection, and mass belief systems. Pisces moves humanity into the oceanic dimension of the soul. It weakens hard boundaries and invites longing for the beyond. It's the age of saints, mystics, martyrs, dreamers, and believers, but also of confusion, fantasy, and sacrifice without clarity. The age of Aquarius, year 2000 onward. It's element of air and it's fixed. The age of Aquarius is often treated superficially, but esoterically it signifies a major shift towards networks, knowledge systems, intellectual abstraction, technological advancement, unconventional social forms, reform, collective structures, and the attempt to liberate consciousness from rigid old paradigms. Aquarius is fixed air associated with a pattern of structure, innovation, shock, collectivity, and the transmission of knowledge across systems. Traditionally ruled by Saturn, and in modern astrology, Uranus, Aquarius contains both order and disruption, systemic intelligence, and revolutionary rupture. By the way, planet Uranus recently went into the air sign of Aquarius, and so it's going to shake a lot up, especially if you have any Gemini placements or its polarity placements, or those that planet in any one of your houses. So we're going to see for the next 7 years, it stays there for 7 to 8 years per zodiac sign, and it just switched from Taurus into Gemini. So we're seeing a lot of upheaval right now. Humanity's movement toward global communication networks, technological integration, digital identity, decentralized communities, and revived interest in occult and esoteric knowledge all mirror Aquarian themes. So that's why it's getting so big. Yet Aquarius is not automatically enlightened. It can express genius, reform, collective awakening, but also alienation, cold abstraction, ideological rigidity, and disembodied living. The challenge of Aquarius is not merely to know more. It is to integrate knowledge into living wisdom and preserve humanity within systems of increasing complexity. Culturally, the Aquarian age mirrors its sign through technology, electricity, networks, communication systems, global interconnection, and collective consciousness, challenges to traditional hierarchies and institutions, revived interest in hidden knowledge, symbolism, and alternative systems, reform movements, decentralization, and new social models, tension between liberation and mechanization. Aquarius asks humanity to think beyond inherited forms, but it also forces the question, can the human soul remain intact in an increasingly abstract world? And this is why we've seen the birth of AI. The primordial sky, astrology before recorded civilization, approximately 40,000 BCE to 2000 BCE. Before formal astrology existed as doctrine, tables, or symbolic interpretation, there was direct relationship with the heavens. Human beings track the moon, watch the sun's seasonal changes, align themselves to stellar risings, and built ritual life around recurring celestial events. This is astrology in its pre-literate state, not yet codified, but lived. Archaeological evidence points towards early sky awareness in the form of lunar tally bones, cave imagery that may reflect star patterns, and ceremonial structures aligned to solstices or equinoxes. These early peoples did not have horoscopes in a latter technical sense, but they had something even more primordial: participation in cosmic rhythm. Time was observed in the body, in migration and fertility cycles, in weather patterns, and in ritual calendars. This stage matters because it reminds the student that astrology does not begin as entertainment or abstraction, it began as existential orientation. Humanity looked upward because the survival depended on rhythm and the soul depended on meaning. Approximately 2000 BCE to 500 BCE, the birth of formal astrology. In Mesopotamia, especially Babylon, is where astrology becomes a structured and recorded sacred science. Here, the priest astronomers, often associated with the Chaldeans, developed systematic methods for tracking celestial events and correlating them with earthly outcomes. Their records included planetary motions, eclipses, conjunctions, and unusual sky phenomena, which were interpreted as omens from the gods. The Great Omen series, Enuma, Anu, and Lil, is one of the most important witnesses to this early astrological consciousness. At this stage, astrology was primarily mundane, concerned with kingdoms, rulers, crops, weather, war, and political destiny. It did not yet focus heavily on private personal charts for ordinary individuals. The sky was read as a royal and collective script. So this is where we have the systems that we use today in astrology came from this time period. The Mesopotamian contribution is crucial because it formalized celestial record keeping, omen interpretation, divinatory correlation between heaven and earth, the role of the astrologers as interpreter of the divine timing, and what had once been direct cosmic participation now became a disciplined symbolic science. So we would not have ceremonial magic in the way that we do now if we did not have our predecessors from this time period helping us with all of that information that we still use. Okay, so astrology is sacred order, decanic time, and initiatory passage. Approximately 3000 BCE to 30 BCE, in Egypt, astrology enters a temple-based initiatory framework. Egyptian cosmology was governed by Ma'at, the principle of truth, balance, and cosmic order. The heavens were not merely watched, they were woven into the architecture of divine kingship, ritual, healing, and the afterlife. One of Egypt's most important contributions to later esoteric astrology is the decans, 36 stellar divisions that segmented the sky and helped measure sacred time, especially during the night. These decans were associated with deities, powers, thresholds, and cycles of death and rebirth. The heliacal rising of Sirius was especially important, marking the flooding of the Nile and linking celestial timing with renewal, fertility, and survival. Egyptian temples were also built in deliberate alignment with celestial phenomena. This means astrology in Egypt was not merely interpretive, it was architectural, ritual, initiatory, and embodied. The movement through temple space mirrored movement through sacred order. The Egyptian current mirrors esoteric astrology through sacred timing through decanic divisions. That's dividing the houses into 3 sections of 10 degrees each. Each sign is 30 degrees. So sacred timing through decanic divisions, celestial alignment of temple architecture, integration of sky lore with death, rebirth, and the soul's passage, and a view of the cosmos as a moral and spiritual order, not merely a physical one. Greece and Hellenistic synthesis, the structuring of astrology as we know it. Approximately 800 BCE to 200 CE, Hellenistic flowering, approximately 300 BCE to 200 CE. Greece inherited Babylonian celestial knowledge and brought it to philosophy, mathematics, classification, and formal symbolic reasoning. Through the Hellenistic period, astrology took the shape most recognizable today. The 12 zodiac signs, the houses, the planetary dignities, the aspects, chart declination, and more systematic natal interpretation. This was a decisive shift. Astrology became not only a royal or temple science, but a philosophical model of how cosmic order manifests within individual life. So Greek thought introduced the idea that reality is structured by intelligible principles, often referred to through the logos, and astrology became one way of reading that ordered pattern. This era also produced some of the great written astrological sources, including Claudius Ptolemy, whose Tetrabiblos became enormously influential for later tradition. Ptolemy did not invent astrology, but he systemized much of what had been inherited, organized into a coherent framework that shaped medieval and Renaissance astrology for centuries. The Hellenistic contribution is essential because it refined astrology into a rational symbolic system, a philosophical cosmology, a technique for reading both collective and personal destiny, and a bridge between the visible sky and metaphysical order. The Hermetic current, astrology as inner ascent and esoteric cosmology, approximately 200 BCE to 300 CE. Running alongside the Hellenistic astrology is the Hermetic stream, associated with Hermes Trismegistus, the legendary sage of Hermetic wisdom. Within Hermetic structure, astrology is not merely predictive. It becomes part of the spiritual cosmology in which the soul descends through planetary spheres into incarnation and may ascend again through purification, gnosis, and divine remembrance. Here the planets are understood not only as external bodies, but as interior principles, layers of consciousness, psychic powers, and initiatory thresholds. Astrology becomes a symbolic map of ensoulment and return. The dictum, as above, so below, expresses the Hermetic worldview perfectly. The order of the cosmos is reflected within the human being, and the human being may come to know the greater order through inner awakening. This is one of the deepest roots of esoteric astrology. It shifts the student from seeing astrology as fortune-telling into seeing astrology as a map of consciousness, initiation, and ontological structure. The Islamic Golden Age, preservation, translation, and refinement. Approximately 700 CE to 1300 CE. During the Islamic Golden Age, astrology was preserved, translated, critiqued, and advanced. Scholars working in Arabic translated Greek works, including Ptolemy and others, while refining astronomy, planetary calculations, medical astrology, and horary practice. This period is indispensable to astrology's survival, because this happened during the Dark Ages. The church, none of this stuff was okay to be out in the open. So while that was going on in the medieval period, I've talked about this in the history of magic, the Islamic Golden Age and their culture, they preserved all this for us, or we wouldn't have it in the way that we do today. So astrology in this era remained integrated with mathematics, astronomy, medicine, philosophy, and court life. Rather than being seen as inherently irrational, it was treated as a serious branch of knowledge. Technical precision improved, tables became more sophisticated, and astrological knowledge was carried forward into Europe through these transmissions. So this era matters historically because without it, much of classical astrological knowledge could have been lost. The Renaissance, the reunion of astrology, alchemy, medicine, and magic. Approximately 1300 CE to 1700 CE. The Renaissance did not invent esotericism, but it reignited and reorganized it. This was the great European revival of Hermeticism, Neoplatonism, astrology, alchemy, magic, and sacred correspondences. Astrology re-entered intellectual and spiritual life, not as a novelty, but as part of a broader restoration of ancient wisdom. The scientific revolution and the veiling of astrology. Approximately 1600 CE to 1800 CE. As a mechanistic science rose in Europe, astronomy and astrology became increasingly separated. The cosmos came to be understood more as a machine than a living symbolic organism. This did not happen overnight, nor was it total, but it marked a profound philosophical break. Astrology was gradually pushed to the margins and stripped of much of its former public legitimacy. This matters because it explains why astrology survives today in fragmented forms. What was once a unified sacred science tied to medicine, philosophy, ritual, and cosmology was broken apart. Astronomy retained the material sky, while astrology retained the symbolic sky. The occult revival. Astrology reclaimed in esoteric orders and hidden schools. Approximately 1800 to 1950. In the 19th and early 20th century, astrology experienced a revival through occult societies, hermetic orders, theosophy, ceremonial magic, Rosicrucian currents, and renewed interest in ancient wisdom traditions. This revival re-sacralized astrology, though often in new language and under modern conditions. Modern astrology, psychological, humanistic, and evolutionary development, 1900 to present. In the modern era, astrology continued evolving. Modern astrology emerged through the late 19th and 20th century as astrology began to merge with psychology, spirituality, and personal development rather than remaining focused solely on fate, prediction, or external events. Influenced heavily by figures such as Carl Jung, modern astrology shifted towards understanding the inner world of the individual, personality, subconscious patterns, emotional wounds, soul growth, and self-actualization. While traditional astrology often emphasized concrete outcomes such as marriage, status, illness, or worldly success, modern astrology views the birth chart as a symbolic map of the psyche and the evolutionary journey of the soul. The planets are understood not only as external forces, but as archetypal energies expressing through human consciousness. This approach also expanded the importance of the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, which became associated with awakening, transcendence, transformation, collective consciousness, and deep psychological change. In many ways, modern astrology became a bridge between ancient esoteric symbolism and modern spiritual psychology, helping individuals understand not simply what may happen in life, but who they are becoming through the unfolding of experience. How the esoteric and occult lineage refined astrology. So to make the through line clear for the student, it helps to state directly what these occultists and esoterists contributed. Okay, so we have Mesopotamian priesthoods gave astrology its recorded observational and omen-based foundation. Then came the Egyptians. Egyptian temple systems linked astrology to sacred timing, initiation, and stellar theology. Greek and Hellenistic thinkers structured the technical framework of zodiac houses, rulerships, and interpretation. Hermetic philosophers transformed astrology into a doctrine of soul descent and ascent. Islamic scholars preserved, translated, improved, and expanded techniques. Renaissance magi and physicians reunited astrology with magic, medicine, music, philosophy, and talismanic work. Occult revivalists restored astrology to initiatory systems and symbolic psychospiritual training. Modern esoteric astrologers reframed it as a path of consciousness, soul development, and evolution. So this lets a student see astrology not as one static timing, but as a living current refined by many custodians across time. Esoteric astrology versus surface level modern astrology. This distinction is important to include. Surface level modern astrology often reduces the art of personality shorthand, entertainment, identity labeling, and generalized sign descriptions. It may have some usefulness as an introductory gateway, but it often detaches astrology from its sacred, historical, symbolic, initiatory, and technical depth. Esoteric astrology asks deeper questions like, what is the soul learning through this incarnation? How does cosmic timing reflect inner development? How do collective ages shape civilizations? How do the planets represent states of consciousness? How does one live in alignment with celestial law rather than in ignorance of it? Esoteric astrology treats the cosmos as meaning and the human being as the participant in its order. It's not merely descriptive, it is initiatory. Closing transmission, astrology as the study of time, consciousness, and sacred correspondence. Astrology endures because it addresses something that no age has truly escaped: the need to understand pattern, meaning, timing, and place in the cosmos. Humanity has always looked upward in order to understand what is unfolding below. Empires used astrology, temples used astrology, mystics, physicians, philosophers, magicians, occultists refined it, argued with it, spiritualized it, preserved it, operationalized it, and passed it on. The systems change, the currents remain. When studied esoterically, astrology is not a superstition from the past nor a trend from the present. It is a sacred language of correspondence through which one may contemplate the soul, civilization, history, destiny, and the living order of time itself. It reveals that human life does not unfold in isolation but within a greater rhythm, a rhythm reflected in the planets, encoded in the zodiac, encoded in the ages, and mirrored in the turning of civilizations. The heavens do not merely decorate existence, they reveal its structure. And astrology at its highest level is the art of learning how to read that structure within the world, within history, and within the soul. The deeper purpose of astrology was never merely prediction, but remembrance. Across the ancient world, from Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Greece to the mystery traditions, temples, and initiatory schools of the past, the movements of the heavens were understood as reflections of the living intelligence woven into existence itself. The precession of the equinoxes and the unfolding of the astrological ages reveals that humanity evolves collectively through vast cycles of consciousness, each age shaping civilization, religion, psychology, values, and spiritual understanding. Yet astrology is not only collective, it is deeply personal, and the natal chart becomes a symbolic mirror of the soul's architecture, its strengths, tensions, karmic patterns, gifts, lessons, and evolutionary direction. On a spiritual path, astrology serves as a sacred language that helps illuminate timing, cycles of transformation, psychological patterns, and the deeper currents moving beneath ordinary life. It reminds us that we're not separate from the cosmos, but participants within it. And the same intelligence moving through the stars also moves through the human psyche. And in this way, astrology becomes not a system of limitation, but a tool of awareness, alignment, and conscious participation in the unfolding of the great work. Okay, you guys, that's all I have for you on this. I hope that you guys really enjoy this one. Wanted to tell you that I really appreciate each and every one of you. Up next, my last video, I forgot, I'm doing separation and suffering next. I'm going to be tackling those heavy topics. So I will see you guys pretty soon. Bye.